Thank you all for attending this. We are the Wellbeing and Advisor Retention Advising Community, and we're happy to be kicking off Global Advising Week. And I just want to highlight, I am Rebecca Helms from Troy University, and I am the chair of the AC. And I'll also be moderating today and running the slides and such. But to introduce who the panelists will be, your panelists will be. These are all part of our steering committee, but we have Brandon Jones from East Carolina University, Martha Lance from University of Vermont, and Yancy Cabrera, Miami Regional University, and then Melissa Cumbia, Virginia Tech. I apologize, I never even told you what our, if I can access this. We'll be presenting the hard work, celebrating the stories that keep us going. So as we're going through, if you want to share stories in your in the chat, we would love to go back and look at them. And at the end, we'll have space for you all to unmute and discuss as well. But I'm going to hand it off to our panelists. And the first question is meaningful moments that remind advisors of their impact. So whichever of you want to go first.
I can go ahead and go first. Hi everyone, I'm Yancy Cabrera, and I'm sure we could be here forever telling meaningful moments that remind us of the impact that we do. I have one specific one that stands out to me in from the past 20 something years that I've been doing this, and that moment is when a student that I was advising for her whole entire time, and that was at the University of Miami for 4 years. And she kept having, different academic issues. She had a lot of personal things going on in her life. So we would meet throughout every semester, and, every time we met, she wanted to quit. She was like, there's no way I can make this, and a lot of family issues as well too. Like she didn't feel like anyone really believed in her. So anytime she had a failure or, life happened to her, she always wanted to give up, and she didn't think she was worthy of becoming a nurse. She was studying to be a nurse. And I always tried my best, what I felt was my best to help her, build that confidence through time, and give her advice on, how to make it work for her, and everything that we do. But for 4 years, I never felt like I impacted her in any way. She wasn't the smiley type of person. She wasn't very communicative with me as far as, oh, thank you. Or you know how sometimes we get the students that their eyes light up and they're like, oh, thank you so much, I get it. And you know that you got to them, right? You know you did something that day. I never got any emotions from her at all. She would just come and tell me what her issues were, and she never did quit, but I never got anything from her. Like I didn't know if she ended up graduating. And when she did, she left me a card when I wasn't here. She made sure I wasn't here. She left me a card. And I mean, I literally cried when I read the card. I'm getting goosebumps right now. She was telling me that from the beginning, that when she first met me, she had never met anybody in her life, including her parents, that she ever felt actually genuinely cared about her or her progress or her success at all. That I was the only person throughout those 4 years that she would keep coming back to me to talk to me, because I was the only one that actually made her feel worthy. I mean, it was a really deep, card. For someone who had no emotions towards me, or am I helping you? And I would ask her, like, do you feel better? Are you feel more confident? There was like nothing there throughout the 4 years. She would keep coming to me, but there was no reaction there. So when I got that card from her, I mean, I was like, wow. So I hope that this reminds some of you who may be maybe first year advisors, or maybe just starting off and kind of trying to think, is this really for me? Am I impacting students? I promise you that if it's in your heart and this is what you feel good about doing, you are going to have moments and you're going to have days that you are not going to feel worthy as an advisor. You're going to feel like maybe you're in the wrong business, you're in the wrong career. But if it's really in your heart, I promise you, you are making a difference, and an even bigger difference to the ones that don't tell you, because not everyone is going to tell you or come back and tell you that you made a difference, but you are making a difference. So that's one of the stories that stands out to me the most.
Yeah, just to riff off that, Nancy, thank you. I think it's important to realize that we as advisors are natural storytellers, or at least collectors of stories. And that's why this session, I think, is so important to each of us as we continue this work, as we fight the exhaustion of the end of the term. The students come to us and share stories. I'm a geek. I love looking at transcript. That is a story. So uncovering the narrative with them of who they are currently and who they want to be is our mission. Thinking of advising as storytelling and story collecting. I had a similar one of a student that I had early at the University of Vermont Honors College. Her GPA had dipped a little bit, and I came to me during COVID. It was a remote session, and I quickly realized I needed a FERPA form. So that was lesson one, because the grandmother was hovering in the background as we had our session. So we got the FERPA form. I explained what FERPA was. This was a first gen student living in a very poor rural county in Vermont. We were able to bring I's grades up that spring. We were able to investigate her yearnings and passions. And after that first year, we kept in touch here and there. I'd see her. But you can't imagine my surprise when she was graduating. Our lovely first gen office has the students write cards to people who impacted them while they were at the University of Vermont. So you can't imagine my surprise and delight when I got a note from I as part of her graduation celebrations. Again, a thank you note. Honestly, I had no idea I had earned her gratitude. It was so humbling to receive that note. I have it posted in my office. She graduated a few years ago. And I look at it and I'm reminded of my responsibility to treat everyone with respect and kindness, which isn't easy because sometimes the students are a pain. We know that. I agree with Yancy. Sometimes we touch students and we have no idea. I would suggest that there are more stories untold to us than we can imagine. But the work is hard. Advising has changed over time. We need to know them more deeply as humans rather than just, oh, I don't know, the biochem major. And that's our quest, is to unravel their stories, to make them trust us enough so we can unravel those stories.
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, I think when I think about meaningful moments in advising, it's a lot of those like little moments when you start talking to a student who's stressed at the beginning of your meeting, and by the end, they're like, "Oh, I'm so relieved," you know. Or it's, students who even their obvious relief comes through in an email response, like, "Thanks so much for that. That was really helpful," you know. So there's like little encouraging moments often pass us by, and it's the big stories that sometimes make us realize those things were happening, you know. And so when I think about a student story that encourages me, I think about a student who I got to work with for all 4 years, so from orientation to graduation, who had a really tough transition to college and a tough first semester, and then had to work to get back into good academic standing during their second semester. So we met a lot during that time and talked a lot. And this student stands out to me because they wanted to sort of creatively think about how to approach college in a way that worked for them. They didn't necessarily do the things the way other students did them. They found really unique engagement opportunities. It's just like Martha was saying, where you're like kind of figuring out that person's story, and what's specific to them. So the student just found really creative ways to put together schedules that worked for them and how to get involved. And they rebounded from those initial difficulties. They navigated other challenges. And by graduation, we were celebrating that student with multiple awards. And, that student, I think, said very kind things about my work with them, but it was like my honor to be a part of their kind of whole journey and process. So that's definitely a student that will stick with me.
I have a smaller story than some of these that these were two students so I've been an advisor for almost 4 years now. So these are students who were in their sophomore to junior years when I first started. And I did not think that I had played a huge role in their success. But I make a point of volunteering for commencement. And so most of the time when I volunteer, I request that I am on lineup duty for my majors. I have a little bit of a way to be able to do that. So I was fortunate enough to see them at commencement. And so this is kind of the big celebration. And both of them, they're, students are taking selfies and taking pictures and all that stuff. And they wanted to take a picture with me because they said I am the reason they were there. And so the coolest thing is that one of them is actually in our graduate program, and I think will be graduating this year again. So I may see her again. So that it's a smaller story of impact, but it's definitely something that keeps me going for sure.
All right, thank you for sharing those very meaningful short stories. So the next question or next prompt we have is student stories of connection, resilience, and impact that encourage us. Whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I'll go first. And there are so many stories that we have connection and resilience, like impact. Like one of my students who was in both of my college orientation classes and had some personal issues throughout the year with some students who I will not name. I won't name the student for confidentiality reasons. And she stayed in constant communication with me throughout this entire process. She and I helped her find the right resources that were beyond advising. And by the end of this semester, she was coming out of it. She got a little better at it emotionally, physically, and mentally. And she has been passing her classes, and she is a mass communication major, even though mass communication is not in my cohort. My cohort is social science because
Yeah,
I've always
thank
felt that
you. Oh, sorry.
advising is teaching. And she was very, very resilient, and my advising really helped her. And now she's a few credits away from reaching sophomore classification.
Oh, that's wonderful, Leslie. Thank you for sharing that. Advising is definitely teaching. Just in the, just until we get to the end though, if you could just comment or save your comments that you want to speak to us about till the end, that would be great. Okay, Melissa, do you want to take this one off?
So I think that I've been thinking a lot about like stories of connection, especially as conversations in advising talk a lot about what AI can do versus what we can do a little bit. So thinking about like those stories of connection, about having like a personal relationship with students. Um, and Becky, are you looking for us to share another story now?
Yeah, or just what keeps us going? What keeps you going in throughout the day in your day-to-day advising, or it could be a story about a specific student or just advising in general.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying. So, I think that when I think about like connection, one of the things that really encourages me is when a student takes the time and effort to send me an update after graduation. It kind of it makes me realize that when they thought about who should I tell? I got into grad school or I got this job that I love. When they send me a note like that when we're no longer in contact and they reach out with an update after graduation, that makes me feel like there was a meaningful connection there. That really makes me feel um, like I got to serve like a special purpose in that person's life. So much so that they wanted to let me know how it's going now. So I think that's what comes to mind for me with this question.
Yeah, I'll just jump in with a registration connection. Sometimes teaching students about policy and due dates is also important. I'll never forget one student who showed up at my office at 4:30. The ad drop period was ending in half an hour, and she was one of my first year advisees, and she was completely in the wrong major, engineering, because her grandfather was an engineer. You know that story. So we had 20 minutes to completely get her out of the engineering classes and into a new major. And we did. She became an econ major and went on to grad school. But the panicked student running into my office uh, at the last hour, I'll never forget that. It was hilarious, but we did it. And we were able to navigate systems and complexities of a big university, which she obviously came to our office for that guidance. And again, I'll never forget it. It was hilarious. I mean, we did a whole new major in 20 minutes, but she knew what she wanted. She knew what she wanted, and she knew she needed to come to our advising suite to talk to someone who would be open to changing her life immediately.
I'll go ahead and share a story. This is a specific student story that their resilience encouraged me as an advisor, as a human being altogether. So this is a story about a student that I met here currently at the university where I'm at. And at first she would come to me, a very, very sweet young lady, very, very poised, very like a peaceful type of aura type of, person. She was going through a lot of financial issues, which was really what was impacting, her stress and her academics. Very, very smart young lady. At first, when I would meet with her, I didn't know what she was really going through until one day she actually sat down and told me. Long story short, she actually lived on a boat with her 9-year-old son that had a lot of medical issues. She didn't have any support from the father. Her family wasn't here, so she was basically on her own, trying to become, a nurse. Um, Not just, to have a steady job, but this was you can tell that the type of person when they're like definitely in the right major. Like this person is an amazing nurse right now. But the reason why I wanted to tell this story is because she encouraged me, I mean, really more than an advisor, as a human being, to say, this person is going through all of this. She has a child, which, many of us do. Many of us have, issues and things going on. But she just never gave up. Like she was always concerned about, how do I do this? And can I retake this class? Never complained about anybody, never pointed fingers as, oh, because my professor didn't help me, that's why I didn't do well in the test, or, because this is going on in my life. She kept that to herself up until the very end, almost as, she did not blame anybody for her situation. She was just going through a situation like many of us go through. And she's just such a beautiful, amazing person that her story impacted, like I said, it just impacted me, period. She never let any of that get in the way. She always made an effort to make sure she studied more, she did something better, whatever it is that she had to do. Never once did I hear her blame anything or anybody, like a lot of us sometimes do. We hear students blaming, oh, I failed the test because of the professor, right? Or I failed because this is going on, or I'm going through a divorce or so forth. You know, everybody deals with things differently, but her story encouraged me as an advisor, as a human being, period.
Yes, I have, I guess, 2 points of connection on this. One was the connection, and I was kind of inspired by Melissa's story. Was, um, and I have somewhat of a dual role as an advisor, where I do health professions advising as well as major advising. And I had a student who I met with probably twice a semester, every semester, and from when I started. He graduated to about 2 years ago, and I saw him go through the application process for PA school. Didn't get in the first time. So this might also be a story of resilience too. And he didn't hear from him for a little while, and I get an email from him the next cycle, and he told me that he had been accepted to PA school in the second try, and he just wanted to make sure that I knew about it because I guess he felt connection with me, and I definitely like saw him grow as a student, just kind of in the periphery, just because I wasn't overseeing his major. So it was kind of a cool story to see him grow and be successful in that regard. The resilience story is, so I mentioned earlier, I'm in my upcoming to fourth year in advising. So this upcoming graduating class will be the ones that started with me. So in my first semester as an advisor, I got an email from the Dean of Students office wanting to set up an appointment to meet about a student who had been involved in a vehicle accident. And this was during Thanksgiving break, and they wanted to meet with me to arrange or rearrange this person's schedule for the upcoming semester because they would not be able to attend in person. So we went through the process, got everything situated. I'm also grateful for the Dean of Students office and getting all of the previous classes listed as incompletes so that they could process through them. And I proceeded to watch them finish each one of those classes get checked off while they were recovering from this accident. And they are about to graduate, and um, they're one of the best students in our major. They got through all of that, and they are about to graduate, and they are also interested in going to PA school. So I'm looking forward to seeing another email at some point, hopefully that they've been accepted.
All right, thank you. Now we're gonna kind of switch into why are these stories impactful? Any of the panelists want to take this on first?
I can go ahead and start it up for us. Why are they impactful? Advisors, student retention for sure. I mean, if we're not, we could be doing anything, right? But if the stories that we have are not impactful for us, what's the point of doing this? We could be doing something perhaps less stressful, much easier. Advisor retention, if we continue to be impacted and we love what we do for the most part, I mean, of course, we're all going to have moments, but if we continue to be impacted by, the difference we're making, then advisors will last longer. Sometimes we lose, not the not so great advisors, but sometimes we lose the best advisors because they don't feel motivated, or they don't feel like they're making the difference, or they don't feel like they're being impactful, or they've been impacted themselves. So we want to make sure that, we're all in this together. We want to make sure that we motivate each other. And that's the whole purpose of, doing these webinars here. I would definitely encourage anyone, especially new advisors, to not lose faith, to continue to attend these. You're not alone. We all go through the same thing. We all have the same stories with different student names. right? And also for student retention. Once a student gets used to you, or they feel comfortable with you, you I mean, if you're not there anymore, it does make a huge difference for them. They may not feel as comfortable with another advisor or, another staff member that maybe they used to go to. So, I mean, it definitely matters both ways. Professional fulfillment and satisfaction. Again, most of us went to school to studied something related to advising, even though advising is so broad. But we're all here, we could be doing anything else. So if we don't have professional fulfillment and we're not satisfied for the most part, then again, what's the point? You got to remind yourself of your purpose all the time. um Gratitude. I read someone here has like a little folder where they put in like their thank yous and gratitudes.
I'm also gonna move the bookshelf over here.
Someone has their mic on. And that's a great idea. I do that as well too. I have a little folder for like thank you emails and things like that. That's very helpful. Balancing out challenging moments. Sometimes when you are the busiest, that and you want to take a 5-minute break to go get some coffee or water or walk around a little bit or go tell a joke to a colleague or something, and you wish you had 5 minutes but you don't, but you know what you do, it's okay. Nobody's gonna fall on the floor because you take 5 minutes. I've learned that, right? We're not surgeons, so you actually can take 5 minutes. You can balance out those challenging moments that you may be having with a student or yourself, and take your 5 minutes. I promise you, it makes a difference of you coming back and being more impactful to that student, and honestly, just enjoying your job more. The power to be someone's angel at any given moment. That is huge for me because sometimes, again, we're dealing with our own thing and we may be stressed out, but a student may be in desperate need at that moment, for your attention, for your care, for your advice. And it's those little moments, and it usually happens when you are very stressed. It usually happens when you have 5 students waiting for you. It doesn't usually happen. Life kind of works that way. When you are on downtime and you're just, following up on emails gracefully while you listen to jazz in the background, right? Doesn't usually happen that way. That's the whole point of being an angel, right? You're gonna be there for them, not when it's convenient for you, but when they need it the most, which is usually when it's least convenient for you. So don't forget that. Don't forget the power to be someone's angel at any given moment. I have to remind myself of that as well too. Um, so it happened about 2 weeks ago for me that I was very busy finishing up a report for SACS accreditation that I needed to turn in, right? So obviously that's very important because, accreditation and it needs to be in. So wasn't stressed, but that wasn't the moment for me to stop what I'm doing to go do anything else. But there was a student that I could see was very distressed. And I remembered my own saying, because I say this a lot, the power to be someone's angel. This is very important. So I was about to say make an appointment, but I could see that that wasn't what the student needed at the moment. So I reminded myself and I said, you know what? This can wait. Let me go see what the issue is. And I was able to help the student, and the student was so grateful. Like, thank you so much for taking the time. I didn't know if it was like this, whatever it was. And so, yeah, try to remember that, especially when you don't have the time. I hope that helps.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything specific, or do we want to move to the next slide?
I think I just want to say again that like negativity bias is a real thing, and so it takes a lot of effort and intentionality to remind ourselves of those good moments. At the end of the day, I am not thinking about the 9 appointments that went well. I'm thinking about the one student that I'm really worried about. And then when I'm chatting with colleagues or asking questions or problem solving, I'm focused on the issues. I'm reaching out to people about those things. And it is not my instinct to reach out and say, let me tell you this great thing that happened, in my advising appointment. It almost feels a little like uncomfortable, like bragging or something, but all the things Yenisi was just saying about how these things encourage us, they remind us of their purpose. I love the comments about, being someone's angel, like seizing the moment when you can be helpful. I know we have a party for graduates, and there's almost always one student who's like at that event nervous about something or upset about something who needs to talk then so that they can, you know, take care of that and enjoy celebrating all that they've achieved. So sometimes you just have to be available to when those moments come up too. So yeah, I don't know if others have comments too, but
All right, well, if there's no other comments on this one, we'll switch gears to what is your personal celebration practice? And if any of you want to take on any of these bullets or the whole thing, but Martha, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I have a background in archaeology, so unfortunately I save everything. So I do keep notes from students. And just a word of warning, if you feel a real desire to declutter, maybe think about throwing away some of those notes from 30 years ago because they still are meaningful. So keeping sort of a record of some of the most meaningful students, once in a while I will just look at them and remember the student, remember uh, how they evolved during their time at UVM, and just be really grateful. So somehow, again, retaining the history, I think, is also helpful because sometimes the present day is exhausting. We know that, and the students are exhausted right now at the end of the term. But remembering them and their evolution, uh, and particularly as you see them march across the stage at commencement, that's a tough time for an advisor, actually. But it's also a time to be proud for your students. And so I always try and spend, I don't know, half an hour ago on campus after everyone's left, and I can just remember the students and their stories.
So I'll just add on to what Martha's saying. So we're talking now about personal celebration practices, right? Like what do you do to personally celebrate yourself? Like how do you do that? Because a lot of times we hope and pray and we cross our fingers that we're gonna get recognized, right? Not just so much by our students, but by perhaps other staff members or our supervisors and so forth. And my advice would be never wait for that to celebrate, right? If it comes, great. It's added on. It's like a cherry on your ice cream type of thing, and you can go ahead and enjoy that. But if you wait for that, you're going to be missing a lot of celebration points, right? So again, like we were talking about, put thank you notes somewhere you can see them and read them. And this is a new office for me, but in my other one, I used to have all the thank you cards like lined up, right? Like a bunch of them. I don't have that now, but I do have them in a place where I go when I need like a little break or reminder to celebrate, myself and what I do. I go ahead and do that. I have an email, I have a folder where I have specific thank you, replies from students, not just a thank you for your help, but sometimes when they actually go and say like a different type of thank you, something meaningful. And I have that for staff members as well too. Take a break. I was just talking about that a little earlier. This has saved my life, to be honest with you. This has saved my career. Probably I'll even go as far as saying that. That's why I keep saying it, because it's, if you forget anything that I say, but you remember one thing, give yourself the permission to take a break when you need it. Okay, I promise you that will make your whole entire career just that much more satisfying. I promise you. And that goes with anything in life, right? Like try not to and I tell my students this too. when you're upset or you're mad about the grade that you got in the test, that's not the time to go talk to the professor, right? Because you're not going to be at your best. You're probably not going to be peaceful, and you may say things that will now add on to your issue or the problem that you currently have. So same thing, we're having a personal moment, we're upset, maybe something's personal is going on with us, who do we talk to, right? Who's our advisor? We usually don't have that. We are the advisor, so you're not supposed to need an advisor, but of course we do because we're humans too, right? So that's when you need to, you're the professional, you need to go ahead and remind yourself of that and take that break, make that phone call if you do have somebody for support. Or, if you have a video you're going to watch that's going to make you laugh or whatever it is that you need, take the break. 5 minutes is going to make all the difference. I think it was Brandon that had come up with this one. The institutions can send recognition cards to advisors who, right? Yeah, that was a great idea. Who students mention on surveys. That's a great suggestion, and they can put it somewhere where where you can see it, and I'm sure Brandon can talk a little bit more about this. But and that's something the institution can do, or perhaps maybe you can even do it as as an advisor and share these stories and what they mean to you with colleagues. Yeah, definitely. Personal celebration. I know Melissa was saying like you don't want to feel like you're bragging, and I know I feel like that sometimes too. But hey, what the heck, it's okay to say something positive, and that'll trigger that person more than likely to say something positive back too, like, oh, this happened to me today, or this happened to me yesterday. It's kind of like we're doing here. We're kind of bragging a little bit. But we've earned our bragging rights. We're all in this together, right? So those are my 2 cents with that.
Yeah, I'll continue off since it was mentioned. Our university does it's called It Just Takes One card. So it's not just to advisors, it's anybody on campus, but it's specifically someone that they picked as the most influential person on their academic journey. And not to I keep this even though it's just like a form letter basically. I keep it on, I have a bulletin board right next to my desk, and it's in a place that I can just kind of look over and see it when I'm grabbing some water or something. Um, I did like the idea too. I saw it in the chat, the where it said beauty sustains me, that artwork in the office gives you a boost. If anyone were to see my office, they would understand who I am. And students talk about it all the time. Just all the things that are in here that I can just look at if it's a rough day and it's like, oh, yeah, it gives me a moment to pause and breathe. So I definitely can be an advocate for making as much as you can your space your own so that you can have be comfortable in it.
All
Yeah,
right. Well, thank you guys. Sorry, Melissa, did you want to share something?
I was gonna say we've had some great ideas in the chat. One thing that came up was institutions think an advisor program similar to what Brandon was talking about. Lots of people talking about like printing things out so that you can see them, in addition to saving them where you can find them. Um, I know a few comments in the chat about awards. I get uncomfortable when it feels like bragging about me, but I love to nominate my students for awards, and that's a really, really fun way to celebrate their stories. My college has a persistence award, and my university has um, Aspire awards, which are for like traits like curiosity and commitment and service and things like that. So there are lots of, I'm happy to be at an institution where part of my celebration practice can be nominating students for recognitions. So that's a fun thing to do too.
All right. Well, thank you. All right. In the last few minutes we have just like one or two more slides left. And then we'll get into Q&A. I know we're pushing it a little bit on bleeding into the Q&A time, but Martha, you wanted to talk a little on this quote?
Yeah, and just thinking about our work and this session, I remember this quote from Maya Angelou, who popularized this distinct expanded version of a phrase we've probably heard before. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And I think that's the heart of our mission, is to make people feel, our students feel confident, feel that they can evolve and grow in positive ways, and that we're there for them. So I don't know, I thought that was just a quote to remember.
Yeah, thank you, Martha. I think it's definitely a beautiful quote. Now, for any of you, I would like to point out, if you are interested in following us on social media, we have a Facebook group, we have a LinkedIn group, and we post updates on the forums as well. So if you want to follow us, member, non-member, you can still join our socials, and get resources, ask questions. But for events and everything, future events, you have to have NACADA membership for joining any of our events or being on our steering committee. But if you are a NACADA member and you're interested in being on our steering committee, we do a lot of fun stuff. You can email that email address and I can send you information on different things we do and what you want to be involved in. But for the rest of this, we have 15 minutes left. I would love for anybody to unmute. I know we have a lot in the comments. I love that you all have shared, but if there's anything you want to unmute or ask questions, I could glance through to see if there's any specific questions. And I'll also try to share out, this chat if I can, after the event on our socials. But yeah, anyone, please feel free to unmute and share anything with us.
Hi, Becky. It's Edna Renee, who I'm also
Hello.
on the steering committee for this wonderful community. So, if you want to join us, we're a good time. But I'm also thinking about how sometimes when we think of our meaningful moments or impact, we might limit it to our students and our colleagues and not thinking about sometimes the broader impact that we might have. And the story I think of is early on in my advising career. I was running late and I was annoyed, but I saw a story on television about there was another college in the area that was closing. And one of the things that they said, if students were 8 credits or less away from their degree, they would waive the credits that the students were missing to go ahead and get them their degree as long as there was less than 8 credits. So fast forward, I'm in my office, and a student comes in. This is middle of summer, wants to be a non-degree seeking student because he is a student at this college that is closing, and he is 6 credits away from the graduating point. He's like, I need these 6 credits. And I'm looking and I'm like, okay, there's no way in the middle of July I can get you into anything. And then I stopped. I'm like, wait, you said you were 6 credits short? I think they're going to waive those and still give you your degree. And he's like, what? I'm like, look, here's the news story. Let me also email it to you. But here's the contact. The news story said, reach back out to your college and see if you can get a degree. And so I'm thinking, we often just think, well, our students are thinking, but this is someone basically off the street that because I was caught a news story, was able to say, hey, wait, I think you can still graduate, even though I can't help you with anything at our institution, felt really meaningful for me. So sometimes there are things that we do, maybe something that we say in a NACADA presentation or something that someone we talk to at a conference who's having a bad day or someone who walks in off the street that we're able to help that might also be meaningful in ways that we aren't thinking of.
Yeah, that's right. Is anyone else, someone asked about if it's being recorded. I think it was recorded. I don't remember, but we'll share out the slides and hopefully the chat transcript into our social media groups. So feel free to join. I will post the link to the link tree in the chat as well, so you guys can have access to that. But does anyone else want to unmute and share anything?
I think just remembering how sometimes I like to see myself in students, even if I can't necessarily like directly relate to them. So I remember, like, for example, I had a student who was talking about multiple different things, and I thought that was pretty funny, and how comfortable he felt just going on tangents. And it reminded me of me when I was always talking to basically my faculty advisor and just going to him for advice for random things. And it made me realize that, like, it reminded me of the same kind of pattern of speech that I had. And I was thinking, okay, that's because I'm making this student feel comfortable and safe. And so like going back to I think it was it a Maya Angelou quote saying like people remember how you made them feel. I always just go back to that and how that faculty advisor made me feel. He made me feel safe enough to just pop into his office and say, "Hey, I need some advice." And so I try to emulate that same thing to students who pop into my office too.
100% agree. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree about like, knowing they're getting comfortable. Like, I have a lot of students that are definitely neurodiverse and possibly on the autism spectrum. Some have told me they are, and some I just suspect. But when they start going off on tangents or sharing random facts, like one will tell me all about his dog. I'm just like, I love this so much. But anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I just want to say that I think sometimes too, again, we're just not aware of the stories, but also we live at least I live vicariously through these students and their accomplishments. And it's kind of fun because every day you get to dream of a new life. And I think that's also very fulfilling is that we are we have them in our hands so often. It's a great responsibility, but it also allows us to live vicariously and really take a deep dive into the human condition.
Definitely. Was
Yeah,
there someone else that want to share? I think someone else
yeah,
unmuted.
I
Okay, yes.
I do advising for prospective students as well. So, when I'm talking with prospective students and they're interested in the program that I advise at the university, but really they're not a really good match for that, I always tell them about other schools, in the area that would be a really good fit for them. And I give them all of the information for that school. And they're sometimes very surprised. They're like, well, I thought you work here that you would like, yeah, but it's your best interest that is of the most importance. And so, I want you to have the best fit wherever it is, whatever program is the best fit for you. So having just information about other schools that you think would benefit the student the most rather than just your school.
Definitely. I think that's how I view us as kind of education advocates or like higher education advocates because I want to educate my students to like make the best choices. Like, if they're coming from community college to your 4-year college and they don't realize that like the Pell Grant doesn't fully cover tuition, like, and they have to do student loans. I want to educate them about that. And I want them to make the best decision for themselves. Like, yes, I'm definitely for my institution succeeding also, but mainly it's about the students succeeding, in my opinion. But anybody else want to share anything? We have a good like 9 minutes left, so please feel free to share or ask questions.
So I kind of have a cute story. I'm Anna. I'm the dual enrollment advisor at Great Falls College out in Great Falls, Montana. This is actually about my last job when I was working at Montana State Bozeman, which is our biggest university in the state. And I had a student who it was a Friday afternoon during our like winter intercession break, right before Christmas or New Year's or something like that. And I was actually trying to get out of work a little bit early. And I had a student show up in my office. Kind of impromptu, she was confused because the person she was supposed to meet with left early for the day and didn't show up for their meeting. That was our perspective advisor. And so I kind of took on this whole thing about she was from Italy, had a degree from Italy, but had moved to the US to be with her husband and wanted to be a nurse. And she had no idea how to navigate the American university system. As we all know, it's pretty complicated because it's literally our full-time jobs to help them navigate the system. And it started, and I did not want to be there. I was trying to go home. And so I just kind of took the time to do it. And then she kept showing up and kept showing up in my office at least once a week, asking questions. And she was so nervous about getting into the nursing program, getting placed on the specific campus that she wanted to get placed on so she wouldn't have to move. And she made it through the whole program, straight A's the whole time, learning all these things in English is her third language, actually. So learning all these things in a language that she didn't like know. I mean, her English was amazing, but it was, difficult to learn things in a new language. And she made it all 4 semesters of our pre-nursing program, straight A's the whole time, got placed on the campus she wanted to get placed on. But it was after I had moved away. I moved up to this job, which was about 3 hours away. And on the first day of this spring semester, I was working and I had a FaceTime call from one of my old coworkers. It was actually this student that I had using my old coworker's phone to call me and talk to me and show me her in her cute little scrubs that she had on, ready for the first day of nursing school. And I was sobbing in my office when she was calling me. I'm like gonna cry just thinking about it. But she's about to finish her first semester of nursing school, and like, I don't know if it was, I mean, I know that I made the difference for her, but it like made a whole huge difference for me that like, I mean, I wrote down the quote of the power to be anyone's angel in any given moment. And that's like a huge thing. That it was just like such a win and my favorite thing to watch students succeed and be able to, show up so confused and not know what's going on. And then finish her first semester of nursing school. And I can't wait to watch her graduate in 3 semesters.
That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing with us. We have about 5 minutes left. Does anyone else want to share? Do any of the panelists want to say anything? Also, a reminder, I'm putting the link tree for our socials into the chat again. But yeah, anyone want to share? I think I saw Marvet unmute. Do you want to share
Hello.
something? Hi, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. I'm Carl Hamlin from Georgia State University. So I would say that I've been doing this since 2005. So I've seen a different type of student from 2005 to now, and still showing the same admiration, showing the same helpfulness. That's definitely what the students need. So what I've seen is that being a constant. However, we are needing to reach them, whether it be online or whether it be in person, just reaching them, showing them the same affection and showing them how to learn, because a lot of students don't know what they don't know. So when they don't know that, they get a little scared, a little frustrated. So disarming them with that definitely is a great approach, and it does allow for a lot of great outcomes.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Well, anyone else want to comment or share anything? Well, thank you to our wonderful panelists, and we thank you for everyone that's joined. Please go look at the rest of the events we're offering. NACADA is offering this week free events. All of them look amazing, but if you have any questions, please ask. We're not like ending it right this second, but I just wanted to remind everyone that there are more events going on. There's another one today and like 2 tomorrow. There's quite a few good ones. So, yeah, but thank you all for coming. Happy Global Advising Week, and please celebrate the wins for it all. But yeah, we're still here if you want to say anything in the last few minutes.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, this just really quick. This just came at the right time. Like the last month has been kind of challenging, and so I think I'm probably going to say your name wrong. Maybe it's Yanisi. You were just saying that sometimes you may have that feeling like, man, am I really cut out for this? You know, maybe it's not a good fit, but I think just kind of overcoming perfection is been kind of a thing right now. So just a reminder that to be good advisors, we don't have to be perfect. Yes, we need to have the skills to do the job, but you know, we're gonna make mistakes and you know, just as long as we're respecting our students and you know, trying to do our best, I think that's what matters the most. So thank you for this, and I'm gonna be here all week. So
Wonderful to hear. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Thank you everyone for listening and sharing any comments you may have put in the chat. We'll share the recording and we'll share the chat transcript, hopefully, if Kylie can send it to me. So, but yeah, thank you all for coming. Thank you so much to the panelists for sharing all of your stories and ideas and thoughts. It definitely encouraged and motivated me for sure. But thank you all.